Hello everyone, Storm11 here. Today we'll be talking about spring fever like temperatures that be coming into Kentucky for a few days next week. We also got a big storm that could be arriving towards Kentucky sometime around next Saturday. We're going to get started with a watch warning advisory display across the country. Pretty quiet for the most part. Got winter weather issues for parts of New Mexico, Colorado, Panhandle of Texas, and western Oklahoma. It look like some wind issues across parts of New England, states of the Northeast, and even up towards Montana. But overall, pretty quiet today. Here's the temperatures as of past 11 o'clock this morning. Temperatures are chilly across parts of central and eastern Kentucky, generally in the low 40s, where we still have some cloud cover out there, but we are expected to clear out today for most of the state and get quite a bit of sunshine. In areas that have seen plenty of sunshine so far this morning is in the upper 40s to right around 50. Bowling Green has hit 50 degrees out there this morning. And let's talk more about those temperatures here. So overall, we're going to say mostly dry over the next several days here. As we go through, the rest of your Saturday here, highs won't make it that much for today. We'll have some low 50s in western Kentucky. The rest of the state will probably be in the upper 40s, probably some mid 40s, for far eastern and northeastern Kentucky, where they stay underneath some cloud cover a little bit longer today. And then the low temperatures for Sunday morning, we'll see temperatures down around freezing across central and eastern Kentucky. Western Kentucky would be upper 30s to low 40s. And then here's the high temperatures for Sunday here. It's going to feel much nicer. Highs in the 50s across most of the state. Probably some low 60s across southern and western Kentucky for Sunday. And then as we get into Monday here, temperatures will get a few degrees warmer. Generally low to mid 60s across Kentucky out there for your Monday. And then as we move on to Tuesday, we'll add a few more degrees to that thermometer again. And we'll have highs in the mid to upper 60s. And there'll probably be some low 70s out there as well. And I will warn you guys, and I will say this before we get any farther. Anytime we've had, sunny skies with a gusty, southerly wind during the day, about 90% of the time, models underperform on temperatures. I've seen that many times in the past. So as we kind of get towards, like Wednesday, Thursday, and even into Friday, you're going to have to add a few degrees to the thermometer because the modeling is likely to be underdone with the temperatures. And you could probably argue the same way for Tuesday. So that's why I'm saying here probably potential for some low 70s, even though this model here doesn't show 70s anywhere in Kentucky. Probably going to be a little bit too cool, and expect for this model here to run too cool through at least Friday. So let's move on to Wednesday here, and this is when the spring fever, you really start to notice it here. Now, there will probably be a weak front somewhere across northern Kentucky here Wednesday or Thursday. That may keep temperatures a little bit on the cooler side compared to the rest of the state. Up towards northern Kentucky, it's got Covington for a high temperature of 59. Rest of the state's in the 60s, but check out western Kentucky. We'll get in the low, maybe possibly some mid 70s out in western Kentucky for Wednesday. But eventually that front there does move back northward, and it pretty much washes itself out there. But as we get into Thursday, look at those 70s. Widespread 70s across pretty much the entire state. There will probably be some mid-70s across the south and west for your day on Thursday. Meanwhile, the rest of the state will probably be in the low to mid-70s. And then it's a pretty mild to the start of Friday. Look at the low temperatures for Friday morning here. Not even dropping below 50 degrees. So it's going to feel really nice Friday morning. But here it comes, those warm temperatures out there. And with that strong southerly wind, mostly sunny skies, I cannot rule out some upper 70s for Friday. And you could probably say the same for Thursday as well. I do believe there will be some areas Thursday and Friday that may get into the upper 70s. I think that's certainly a possibility here. But then again here, this model here is probably running too cool in the temperature, so I expect at least a lot of places to get in the mid 70s, and I cannot roll out some upper 70s out there for Friday. So truly spring fever like temperatures. And check out those temperatures there off to the west for Friday, mid to upper 70s, and you can see those 80s starting to show up down in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas out there. So starting to get some heat down there, a little bit of spring-like heat down there. So we got that for us. And like I was saying here, we're probably going to stay mostly dry here for the next several days here. So, for Sunday here, there'll probably be some cloud cover across southern Kentucky here. I don't think it's going to amount to much. There is a storm system that does roll through across the deep south Sunday into Monday morning, but we're not expecting precipitation up here in Kentucky. We stay dry for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and even at the Thursday here. The European model is trying to show some showers, maybe a couple of little storms Thursday. I'm not sure about that. But Thursday we stay mostly dry. Same way with Friday. So we'll have a multi-day stretch of mostly dry days. So we got a really good stretch of weather ahead of us. But then as we get towards late next week, here we go. If we look off to our west, we got a strong low pressure system that begins to eject out of the Rockies. And you can see here, pressure does get down to as low as 982 millibars. Friday, it doesn't really gain much strength, at least from the European model. I kind of disagree with this run here a little bit in terms of the intensity of the low. But either way, it's still a pretty strong low here. And of course, Kentucky's going to be deep in the warm sector for this system here, which means some strong, maybe even locally severe storms could be on the table for next Saturday. And you can see here as you get into, deeper into next Saturday night, here comes that line of storms that do roll through across Kentucky. And then we get a pretty good cool down next Sunday right behind it. So that's the European model. Let's check out the GFS model here, and you'll pretty much see the same thing here for the next several days. We generally stay mostly dry, maybe a light rain chance or something like that around Thursday, possibly. And also, I kind of grade the GFS a little bit better with this here. So this is Friday afternoon, 973 millibar low ejecting out of the Rockies. That is a powerful low, and even gets down to 970. Millibars here. It does weaken a little bit as it moves off to the Midwest region, but it could gain back strength as it goes up towards Canada. But of course, once again, Kentucky will be deep in the warm sector with this here, and you can see here as we go back towards Friday, thunderstorms erupt across Arkansas, eastern Texas, and maybe all the way up towards not too far away from western Kentucky out there. And you can see this big line of storms that eventually forms out there along the frontal boundary for Friday night and into Saturday morning. Eventually those storms there move to the east throughout the day of next Saturday. Now the exact timing is going to change as we get closer here. We're still a week out from this system. The timing is going to change as we get closer here, at least in terms of the exact timing. But I will say this, if these line of storms do come through here, around peak time heating, so that'd be like the afternoon into the early evening, then that may be an issue. We could get some strong severe storms. If it comes through the overnight hours, which most severe weather events, it does come through Kentucky through the overnight hours, especially this time of year, then the potential is lower. But I do think either way, strong severe storms could be possible here. But I think the biggest determining factor with this severe weather setup is going to be the moisture return, those 60 plus dew points. And we're going to get deeper into that here in a minute. But I want to first look into the upper air wind dynamics. So we're going to start off with the European model here. And this is 250 millibar winds. This is basically where your low-level jet, or not low-level jet, the jet stream. This is where the jet stream is. Okay, so this is for Friday afternoon. You can see here we got this area here of very strong winds, up in the jet stream here that goes through northern Mexico and into Texas here. And you can kind of start to see here that it kind of wants to split here. This is what we call a diffluence here. That's where you can get a pretty strong amount of lift for these storms here to build up. And you can see here you get really a day later here. This is getting a Saturday afternoon. And you see that diffluence really starting to show up here, but it's a little bit too late. Now, with this type of scenario here, this could favor much bigger storms, down towards the deep south, like down towards Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia down there. And that's assuming if the European model is correct. And it probably will change, as we get closer here. But that diffluence part of when the jet stream splits happens a little bit too late. The European model is a little bit faster with the jet stream. If I move on to the GFS model here, it's a little bit farther north with the placement of the strongest jet stream winds, and takes it over Texas into southern Oklahoma out there. And those are the red and purple colors. But you can see here how the diffluence happens much earlier compared to the European model. And now this is a much more favorable look for diffluence. Right in here, in the area where you see weak winds within the jet stream, is where you're going to have a ton of lift to work with here. Those storms can build tall in this area here that's circled in black. So that'd be the area favored for some big storms to develop, which would include Kentucky here. So GFS likes it over Kentucky and Tennessee. European model is a little bit far south, but it's also a little bit faster. Let's go a little bit down through the atmosphere. Let's check out those 500 millibar winds. So we'll go back to the European model here for those 500 millibar winds. This is where you can kind of see your ridges and troughs, in the atmosphere. And here's our system right here. Right here is our system right in here. So it ejects out of the Rockies, out of Colorado. You get this big jet streak, over the big country of Texas. And you see that divergence aloft out there. That's where you can get some storms to develop. It's also very progressive as well here with this jet streak as well. And you can see the jet streak kind of weakens a little bit. If you don't know what a jet streak is, that's an area of very strong winds within the 500 millibars, which usually out ahead of the jet streak is where you can get an increased amount of lift. And usually with a setup like this area down here will probably be more favorable down here, and sometimes up here as well could be a little more favorable. Whoever's out ahead of the jet streak can be favored for some big storms to develop along that jet streak. But here's what's interesting about this European model run. You see this other jet streak back in here, back over towards California, Nevada, Arizona. You're going to kind of see this thing here kind of shoot and kind of come around the base of the trough here. You see those area of winds here really kind of come through the base of the trough here. As that happens here, all of a sudden here, now you got all this divergence out here, which can really help create some big storms here, which you can see right in here from western Ohio through central Kentucky down in middle Tennessee. You see that area of weaker winds within the stronger winds, those green colors within the red. Those are thunderstorms. So that's where you get where divergence is so strong, the storms are able to build all the way up to 500 millibars. So you can get a big line of storms in this type of scenario like that. If I were to look into the GFS model here, you can see here, and the GFS is different than from the European model here. Winds are a lot stronger with this system here, and it makes sense. Anytime you have a stronger low pressure system like the GFS, the 500 millibar winds will likely be stronger. So it does make sense, right? And And you can see here, kind of seeing that very similar scenario here like I was talking about here. This area of stronger winds, back off towards the west here. You'll kind of see it go for the base of the trough here and kind of eject kind of out ahead of this second part of the jet streak that would be, right in here. So you kind of have two jet streaks within the same trough here. You got one up here, and here's the second one right here. And watch what happens here when that second jet streak comes around the base of the trough here. And they kind of merge together here for Saturday here. And this is a very favorable look for some severe weather. Now, this is more of a neutral tail trough here. It's not negative, it's not positive. It turns to a more neutral tail trough, which would kind of favor more of a squall line type of event here. Normally with neutral tail troughs can favor more in a way of squall lines, and you can see here how the trough turns more negative as you get into like next Saturday night. But you also got all this divergence out here, and right in here would be kind of the sweet spot for those storms here to kind of develop, right in there, out ahead of this big old 100 plus knot jet streak that's right here. Out ahead of that is where you can get some big storms to develop. So comparing both to the GFS and European models in terms of the wind dynamics based off the 250 and 500 millbar winds, obviously the GFS would be much more favorable for severe weather in Kentucky, just based off of these winds compared to the European model. Let's go a little bit lower in the atmosphere. What about the Louisville jet region? So this is 850 millbar winds. We'll go back to the European model. I haven't loaded it in yet for the European model, so we'll use the GFS first. So as it's kind of loading in here, you can see here from the GFS model, so you get into Saturday morning. Now, normally the strongest of the Louisville jet winds occur in the overnight hours. Normally they don't happen during the day. So that's just something worth noting here. But if you do get winds north of 70 knots within the Louisville jet, that's some very strong winds. And usually the Louisville jet helps increase the amount of wind shear in your environment. So that's why having a strong Louisville jet is important for severe weather, because it helps increase the amount of wind shear in your environment. And obviously you can see there from the GFS, we pretty much have a very strong Louisville jet going over Kentucky, which would definitely help with the case for some severe weather. And then you go back to the European model here, kind of similar to this, a little bit weaker, but there are some similarities between the European model and the GFS. So there's at least some model agreement of how the Louisville jet's going to play out out there. And let's talk a little bit about thermodynamics, because this is going to be very important here. And like I was talking about earlier about dew points. So really ideal dew points for severe weather is dew points north of 60. So if you got dew points higher than 60, that can favor some severe weather, especially for this time of year. And you can see from the European model here, those 60 dew points does get as far north as western Kentucky out there. Meanwhile, the rest of the state is in the mid to upper 50s. Now, if you can at least get dew points to the upper 50s, I cannot rule out some strong storms, especially with a setup like this. But more ideal for severe weather would be dew points above 60, which you can see that down across Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, even parts of Arkansas and Tennessee as well. And you can see here how the tongue of the 60 plus dew points does get as far north as western Kentucky, which would mean that western Kentucky could be in play for some severe weather next weekend. If we were to go to the GFS model and look at dew points, and it might take a minute here to load. While that loads there, I'm going to go back to European model. I want to go to maybe 500 millbar winds here and go to relative humidity here, because this will also be an important factor So there's something that's called the Elven mix layer, which we'll get to it here in a minute. So here's the GFS here. And honestly, it's kind of similar here. There's some similarities here. Gets as far north as like Southern Illinois, Western Kentucky for those 60 plus dew points. Obviously, the much better dew points will be more confined to the south. So really for these areas down in here, like down across Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Eastern Texas, large chunk of Arkansas, probably Western Tennessee as well, kind of a slam dunk for some, at least for severe weather potential, just because of those 60 plus dew points. Now, there is some time for the winds to kind of change the upper levels, but I don't expect them to change all that much. But I do think these areas in here generally look pretty good for severe weather, at least at the moment. Now, the northern extent is still highly uncertain. You can see those 50 plus dew points stream all the way up to like Wisconsin and Michigan. That's pretty far north for 50 plus dew points this time of year. You don't see those type of dew points up there very often. So the strong storm potential could make it all the way up towards Wisconsin and Michigan, possibly. But locally for us here in Kentucky, if we can get dew points in the upper 50s, I think we can get some strong storms. But if we can get dew points in like the low 60s, especially if it's more widespread, then we could be talking about some severe weather for next Saturday. One more thing here is I want to talk about the Elven mix layer here, because the Elven mix layer is going to be very important for this setup here as well. If you don't know what the Elven mix layer is, it's basically drier air in the upper levels in the atmosphere. And anytime you have an Elven mix layer that comes into play, it can help increase instability. It can also help make your warm sector cleaner. That can mean less cloud cover, less shower activity. So overall, it can help increase your severe weather potential with a stronger Elven mix layer. Now, the source of the Elven mix layer is down in here. It's over in northern Mexico, southwestern Texas, into southern New Mexico. So that's where the source of the Elven mix layer is. And you can see here within the red colors is lower humidity. So that's basically the Elven mix layer doing its work. And this is the European model here. Now, it's got quite a bit of cloud cover, across Kentucky here, but you do see the Elven mix layer kind of work behind it, and that can actually kind of help severe weather chances a little bit. So this will be another factor to watch here. And if I go back to Saturday afternoon, there's actually the Elven mix layer is actually working into the warm sector, which can mean some instability could be realized for some of these areas in here during this particular time. So this will be another one of those things here to watch as we get closer, is how strong the Elven mix layer is going to be. If you end up with a weaker Elven mix layer, then the warm sector could be messier, which can mean more showers and storms, which can help lower the severe weather potential. But if the warm sector is cleaner, then that can increase your severe weather probabilities. So that's going to be something else to watch as we get closer here. And we'll talk a little bit about the ensembles here. So, and I talked about this on X a couple of days ago, how strong an agreement it is for this range. And really the agreement is still there. And check this out here. This is the European ensembles here. You got a mean of a 982 millibar low, generally along the Minnesota and Iowa state line. And if you look at those numbers of individual members, a lot of those members are even going below 980 millibars. So that is a powerful low out there. And that's more than strong enough to support severe weather for us in Kentucky with a low pressure system like that. And here's the GFS ensembles. A little bit stronger with the mean here, especially a little bit earlier on. Has a mean of 981 millibars, over southern Nebraska. And you can see a lot of those members there go below 980 millibars. So now It is very possible it can weaken a little bit as you get into Saturday as it goes for the upper Midwest, but it could gain back strength as it moves up towards Canada. So that may be another thing to watch for as we get closer, is how strong can this low be, especially for next Saturday, because that seems to be the general day of the arrival of the storms. Kind of looks to be next Saturday, at least as it stands right now. That could change as we get closer, but it's definitely a system we really got to watch as well. Also, with a low this strong here, it could be talking about some strong gusty winds as well. I don't think the winds with this system here is going to be as bad like we dealt with earlier this week. We've had some 55 to 60 mile an hour gusts down in the Cumberland Lake area Tuesday night. I think it was Tuesday night. Tuesday night into Wednesday. I don't think the winds are going to be as strong as for this system, mainly because it's going to be farther away. The low track from the last system was something like this. It went across something like this. This low here is tracking from Colorado through the upper Midwest, so it's going to be much farther away compared to the last system. So I don't think winds are going to be as gusty, but there could be potential for some 40 mile an hour gusts, especially depending on how strong the low jet's going to be and also how tight those isobars are going to be closer to the surface. But we'll wait and see about the wind potential, the wind gradient potential with that system as well. And there's also one more thing I want to touch on, and it's from the Climate Prediction Center. So this is their 8 to 14 day probability heavy precipitation outlook. They've issued a high risk for heavy precipitation across parts of central and eastern Kentucky. That would include places like Pikeville, Middlesboro, Lexington, Bowling Green, Somerset and London, Jackson, Richmond, Danville, all those places in there. And the rest of the state's at a moderate risk, which would be for places like Covington, Louisville, and down towards Paducah. Do I agree with this? No. The main reason why I don't agree with this because the model agreement isn't very good. And the main reason why they've issued a high risk for heavy precipitation is because there's the possibility for a secondary low to develop along this big trough here. If I go to, the European saw-mills for the 500 millbar winds here, to kind of give you guys how big this trough is. I mean, the trough basically covers the entire western and central parts of the country. It's a huge trough. And sometimes with big troughs like these, you can sometimes get a secondary low that develops a little bit far south and it can ride up along the trough as well. Not all models agree on it, but there have been some models that have hinted on that. I know that GF has been hinting on that the last couple runs, but it's not been very consistent. But I will say this. If we do get a low that ends up developing along the trough, what can happen is that the front stalls out and we can get multiple rounds of showers and storms trending over some same areas. That could lead to some flooding issues. If not, the amounts would be much less. And if you were to check out the European model or ensemble mean for precipitation, you can see the numbers are not that impressive. Generally an inch to maybe an inch and a half as a mean. So the mean is not very strong for this system here. If I were to go to the GFS ensembles, it's a little bit stronger than the mean here. It's also more widespread. It's even got 2+ inch amounts possible for Bowling Green, but across most of the state it's generally 1 to 2 inches. And that's not a very good mean for a high risk for heavy precipitation in my opinion. I think a slight risk would be justified in this case here. But if we end up getting a secondary low that develops, we may have to watch for that potential for some flooding issues, but right now confidence is very low with that. But anyways guys, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you really like my channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. If you guys get any questions, leave the comment section down below. I'll answer you guys' questions. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.